Let me tell you a story. A true story about a night when heaven opened up and sent help on motorcycles. You ever been so alone that the silence in your house starts to feel like it's crushing you? So broke that you count pennies at 3 in the morning, knowing they won't be enough? So tired that you can't remember the last time you slept without worrying? That was Sarah Mitchell. 32 years old, but her reflection told a different story. The mirror showed someone much older, someone worn down by 3 jobs that never paid enough, by a 2-year-old son named Isaiah who depended on her for everything, by nights spent crying into her pillow so her baby wouldn't hear. This is about her, about one impossible night, about what happens when you open your door to strangers and discover they're angels in disguise. It's 3:47 in the morning. Sarah sits at her kitchen table in her small house at the end of Willow Creek Road in Cleveland. The neighborhood had pushed her to the margins, literally. Her house separated from the others by an empty lot nobody wanted. $7.32. That's what she counts. Again and again, hoping somehow the crumpled bills will multiply. They don't. That's all that stands between her son and hunger tomorrow. Isaiah sleeps in the corner, not in his bedroom where a child should sleep, but on cushions near the stove because his heater broke 2 weeks ago. She watches his tiny chest rise and fall, and something inside her cracks just a little bit more. Her phone buzzes. A text from her manager. "Don't come in tomorrow. We're letting you go. Your kid was crying too much." Customers complained. 3rd job lost in 2 months. Sarah stares at those words until they blur. How do you work when nobody will watch your child? How do you pay for childcare when you can't afford to work? Her ex-husband David's voice echoes in her memory. "I need to find myself." He found himself all right, in Tennessee with a younger woman, ignoring child support like his son never existed. But then Sarah remembers something. Her grandmother's voice, warm and certain. "Baby girl, when times get tough, remember my fried chicken recipe. That secret blend has been in our family for generations. One day, it might just save you." At the time, Sarah had smiled, never imagining she'd need saving from anything except maybe a boring Sunday dinner. Now, sitting in her cold kitchen with her last $7, those words feel like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. The next morning, Sarah makes a choice. She uses her last $7 to buy chicken and basic ingredients. Sets up folding tables in her living room. Makes a handwritten sign, "Mama Sarah's Kitchen. Authentic soul food made with love." Isaiah sits in his high chair, babbling happily as the smell of perfectly seasoned fried chicken fills the house. The secret is in the spice blend, something her grandmother taught her that makes the coating crispy and flavorful in a way that makes people close their eyes and sigh with satisfaction. But as hours pass, reality crashes in. People walk by. Some slow down when they see the menu in her window, but when they see her black face through the glass, they quicken their pace. Look away. Keep walking. Then Mrs. Patterson from 3 houses down actually stops. Sarah's heart leaps. She rushes to open the door. "Good morning, Mrs. Patterson. Would you like to try some of my fried chicken?" The older white woman's expression changes the moment she sees Sarah clearly. Her eyes narrow with something that looks uncomfortably like disgust. "I don't think so." She backs away. "I heard about you. Single mother, no husband around? I don't eat food from people like that." The words slice deep. "The food is really good, ma'am. I promise." "I said no," Mrs. Patterson snaps. "And you shouldn't be running a business out of your house. This is a decent neighborhood. Keep your kind of trouble to yourself." Sarah watches her neighbor storm away, closes the door, leans against it. The weight of rejection settles over her like a heavy, suffocating blanket. Isaiah looks up from his high chair, innocent eyes wide and trusting. "It's okay, baby," she whispers, picking him up and holding him close. Mama's going to figure this out. But as she looks around her empty restaurant, smelling the delicious food nobody wants to buy, Sarah wonders if some promises are too big for one person to keep. December 23rd arrives with an ominous gray sky. The weather reports had been screaming about it for days. The worst snowstorm to hit Cleveland in 20 years. By evening, snow falls in thick sheets that erase everything beyond Sarah's front yard. The wind howls like an angry beast. The silence is eerie. Even the few cars that normally pass by have disappeared completely. Then, the cold becomes unbearable. Sarah wakes Christmas Eve morning to a house that feels like a freezer. Her breath forms visible clouds. Isaiah is shivering uncontrollably despite being bundled in every blanket she owns. The thermostat displays an error message she's never seen before. No, 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 she whispers frantically, pressing buttons. Not now. Please, not now. The heating repair service? 72-hour wait time due to the storm. Isaiah begins to cry, a thin, wailing sound that makes Sarah's heart clench with panic. Then the power goes out. Click. Darkness. Sarah fumbles for candles and matches, her hands shaking from cold and fear. The flickering flames provide minimal light and even less warmth. She moves Isaiah into the kitchen, the smallest room, hoping to conserve what little heat the gas stove can provide. Boils water continuously, opens the oven door to let the pilot light help warm them. Fortunately, her stockpile of ingredients, bought optimistically for a restaurant that never materialized, means they have food. Canned goods, dried beans, rice, flour, spices. They won't starve. But the cold? The cold is becoming deadly. By the third night, Isaiah has developed a cough that terrifies her. She holds him against her chest, feeling his small body shake, wondering how long they can survive like this. The snow outside has piled so high against the windows it blocks most natural light, making the house feel like a tomb. Then, she hears something. At first it's faint, almost indistinguishable from the storm itself, but as she listens more carefully, the sound becomes unmistakable. Motorcycle engines. The deep, rumbling growl of multiple Harley-Davidson motorcycles cutting through the storm like mechanical thunder. The sound grows louder. Closer. Until it seems to surround her house completely. Through the small gap in the snow-covered window, she sees flickering headlights approaching. Who would be riding motorcycles in this weather? She whispers, clutching Isaiah tighter. The engines grow louder and louder until they shake the very foundation of her house. Then suddenly, they stop. The silence that follows is somehow more frightening than the noise. Heavy footsteps crunch through the snow, multiple sets of boots, muffled voices speaking in low tones she can't quite make out. Then comes the knock. 3 deliberate raps on her front door that echo through the cold house like gunshots. Sarah's breath catches in her throat. The knock comes again, more insistent. Ma'am, we need help. We're freezing out here. Her mind races. Who are these people? What do they want? Through the window gap, she sees dark shapes moving in the swirling white. At least 6 or 7 bikes, maybe more. Then she counts them. 25 men in heavy leather jackets stand in her front yard. 25. The man at the front is enormous, intimidating even bundled in winter gear. When he removes his helmet, she sees a weathered face framed by a thick beard already accumulating snow. We know you're in there, he calls out. We can see the candlelight. Look, I know this is scary, but we're not going anywhere in this weather. We can either freeze to death out here, or you can let us wait it out inside. Every instinct screams at her to stay hidden. She's seen enough movies, heard enough stories to know what happens when women open their doors to strange men in the middle of the night. But then she sees one of the men stumble and nearly fall. Another reaches out to steady him. Dark stains cover his pants. Blood. These aren't men looking for trouble. These are men in genuine distress. Isaiah coughs again, that harsh sound that reminds her how cold they are inside. If these men are suffering outside, they're probably not much worse off than she and her son are inside. Her grandmother's voice fills her mind, clear as if she were standing right beside her. Baby girl, when someone's in trouble, you help them. Doesn't matter what they look like or where they come from. You help them because one day you might be the one who needs helping. Another knock, gentler this time. Ma'am, we've got a man out here who's hurt pretty bad. Been bleeding for hours. I'm begging you, just until the storm passes. Sarah closes her eyes. Takes a deep breath. Isaiah reaches up and touches her face with his small hand, his tone encouraging, as if he's trying to tell her everything will be okay. Mama's scared, baby, she whispers. But maybe being scared isn't always wrong. Maybe sometimes you have to be scared and brave at the same time. She unlocks the deadbolt, slowly opens the door. The man standing directly in front of her is even larger than she imagined. His leather jacket is covered in patches she doesn't recognize. His beard is streaked with gray. But when their eyes meet, she sees something she hadn't expected. Kindness, exhaustion, gratitude, and beneath it all, a gentleness that seems completely at odds with his intimidating appearance. Thank you, he says simply, his voice rough with emotion. I'm Robert. We won't forget this. Sarah looks at the 25 men waiting in the swirling snow. Come in, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Come in before you all freeze to death. As the first man steps across her threshold, Sarah realizes she's just made a decision that will change everything. For better or worse, she's no longer alone. One by one, 25 men file through Sarah's front door. Each one carefully wipes his boots. Each one moves deliberately, avoiding sudden movements that might frighten her or Isaiah. These aren't the wild, reckless bikers from movies. They move with the disciplined precision of soldiers. Robert enters last, closing the door firmly and turning the deadbolt. When he sees Sarah's startled expression, he holds up his hands peacefully. Just keeping the cold out, ma'am. And keeping you safe while we're here. The small house suddenly feels impossibly cramped, but instead of chaos, there's an almost reverent quiet. Isaiah peeks out from his blankets, his eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. One of the bikers, a man with graying temples and gentle eyes, notices him watching and gives a small wave. Isaiah ducks behind the blankets, then slowly emerges again, fascinated. Is that your little boy? The man asks Sarah softly. Yes, that's Isaiah. He's 2. Beautiful child, I'm Charlie. I've got grandkids about his age. Some of Sarah's tension eases. Charlie looks more like someone's grandfather than a dangerous criminal. Robert steps forward. Ma'am, I need to be straight with you. We've got a man who's hurt pretty bad. Do you have any first aid supplies? Sarah sees a young man sitting heavily on her couch, his face pale, dark stains covering his jeans. His hands are shaking. I have some things, she says, already moving toward the bathroom. She returns with supplies and kneels beside the young man. Carlos, they call him. The wound is deep. He really should see a doctor, she says. Can't get to one in this storm, Robert replies. Roads are completely blocked. Sarah looks at Carlos's pale face and makes a decision. I can clean it and bandage it. My grandmother was a nurse. She taught me a few things. As she works, carefully cleaning and bandaging the wound, the other men watch in complete silence. She can feel their eyes on her, but there's no threat in their attention. Instead, she senses something unexpected. Respect. While Sarah tends to Carlos, the other men organize themselves without being asked. Some move to the kitchen, examining her food supplies. Others check windows and doors, not threatening, but securing the perimeter like it's second nature. Ma'am, says a man with a thick southern accent. Would it be all right if we made some food? We've got rations in our packs, and it looks like you've got ingredients. We could make enough for everyone. Please call me Sarah, she says. And yes, I've got plenty of food. I was trying to run a restaurant. Robert's eyebrows rise. A restaurant? What kind? Soul food. My grandmother's recipes. Fried chicken mostly. Well, now we're talking, Charlie grins. Haven't had real home cooking in months. As the evening progresses, something remarkable happens. The kitchen fills with sounds of cooking and quiet conversation. Several men turn out to be surprisingly good cooks. The smell of seasoned chicken and vegetables fills the cold house, making it feel warm and alive in a way it hasn't in months. Isaiah gradually emerges from his hiding spot, drawn by gentle voices and the promise of food. Charlie sits cross-legged on the floor, showing Isaiah how to build towers with empty food cans. He's a smart one, observes a man named Luis. Reminds me of my nephew. As they sit down to eat, crowded around Sarah's small table and on the floor, Robert clears his throat. Sarah, I think we owe you an explanation. She looks around at the assembled faces, all watching her with serious expressions. We're mostly veterans, Robert begins. Army, Marines, Navy. When we came home, we found it hard to fit back into regular life. The brotherhood we had over there, it was hard to find that in the civilian world. So we found each other, adds Charlie. Started riding together, taking care of each other the way we did in service. We're not a gang, Luis says firmly. We don't deal drugs or hurt people. We're just men who needed a family, and we made one for ourselves. Carlos, looking better after food and medical attention, speaks up. We were riding to a Christmas gathering in Chicago. All the chapters come together every year to do charity work. The storm caught us by surprise. Weather said it wouldn't hit until tomorrow, Robert continues. We were trying to make it to a motel when Carlos's bike hit ice. Sarah listens with growing amazement. These aren't dangerous criminals. They're men who serve their country, who struggled to find their place in a world that didn't understand them, who created their own support system. I know what people think when they see us, Robert says quietly. The leather, the bikes, the tattoos. They see outlaws, but we're not. We're just trying to take care of our own. As he speaks, Sarah feels a familiar pain in her chest. The pain of being judged by appearances, of having people make assumptions about who you are based on how you look. I understand, she says softly. People look at me and see a single black mother in a poor neighborhood. They think they know everything about me. They think I'm lazy or that I did something wrong to end up where I am. The room falls silent. Robert's expression grows distant. I had a daughter once, he says quietly. Emma. She was 6 years old. Beautiful little girl with the biggest smile you ever saw. His hands clench and unclench. Leukemia took her 3 years ago. After Emma died, my wife left. Said she couldn't look at me without seeing what we'd lost. His voice cracks. These men, they're the only family I have left. The vulnerability in his voice breaks something open in the room. Sarah finds herself speaking. My husband left 8 months ago. David said he couldn't handle the pressure of being a father. Said he needed to find himself. She lets out a bitter laugh. He found himself with a younger woman in Tennessee. Never called once. Never sent $1. It's like we never existed. Sometimes life just breaks people, Robert says simply. And sometimes it breaks the people who love them too. The shared pain settles over the room like a warm blanket. But you opened your door anyway, Robert says. Even though you were scared. Even though you had every reason not to trust us. My grandmother always told me to help people who were in trouble, Sarah replies. She said when you turn away from someone who needs help, you're really turning away from yourself. Isaiah has fallen asleep in Charlie's lap, his small body relaxed and peaceful. The sight makes Sarah's eyes fill with tears. Thank you, she whispers. All of you. I haven't felt this safe in my own home for a long time." "Neither have we, Sarah," Robert nods. "Neither have we." Outside, the storm continues to rage, but inside the small house at the end of Willow Creek Road, 25 strangers and a single mother have found something precious and rare. A place where they can simply be human beings taking care of each other. Around midnight, Robert notices Carlos shifting restlessly on the couch, making small sounds of discomfort. He places his hand on Carlos's forehead. His skin is burning hot. "Guys, wake up!" Robert calls urgently. "Carlos is burning up with fever." Within seconds, 24 bikers gather around the couch, their faces etched with concern. "What do we do?" asks Luis, his voice tight with worry. "Should we try to get him to a hospital?" suggests another. Robert shakes his head grimly. "Roads are still blocked solid." These tough men who had faced combat, who had survived dangerous situations around the world, stand helpless as their friend burns with fever. "What if he gets worse?" someone whispers. "What if we lose him?" From the kitchen, Sarah has been listening. She steps forward quietly. "Robert, I can help." All 24 men turn to look at her, their expressions a mixture of hope and desperation. "You know about this stuff?" Robert asks, not bothering to hide the relief in his voice. "Some. My grandmother was a nurse. She taught me how to handle fevers." "Please," says Charlie, his voice breaking. "We don't know what to do." Sarah disappears into the bathroom and returns with a basin of cool water and washcloths. Settling on the edge of the couch beside Carlos, she begins gently bathing his face and neck. "Carlos, honey, can you hear me?" she says softly. His eyes flutter open, glassy and unfocused. Where am I?" "You're safe," Sarah replies, her voice taking on the gentle tone she uses with Isaiah when he's sick. "You have a fever, but I'm going to take care of you." For the next several hours, Sarah moves between the kitchen and living room, boiling water for tea, preparing cool compresses, monitoring Carlos's temperature. The other bikers watch her work with something approaching awe. "Mama," Carlos mumbles during a delirious moment, reaching out blindly. Without hesitation, Sarah takes his hand. "I'm here, baby. You're going to be fine." Robert stands in the doorway watching. When Sarah looks up and catches his eye, she sees something that makes her chest tighten. Respect, certainty, gratitude, but also something deeper. Recognition. As if he's seeing something in her he'd been looking for but hadn't expected to find. Around 3 a.m, Carlos's fever finally breaks. His breathing becomes easier. The tight lines of pain around his eyes relax. Sarah feels his forehead one more time and smiles with relief. "He's going to be okay," she announces. "The fever's broken." A collective sigh of relief goes around the room. Luis actually wipes his eyes. Charlie pats Sarah's shoulder with gentle gratitude. "You saved his life," Robert says quietly. "We wouldn't have known what to do." "He saved mine too," Sarah replies. "All of you did. I haven't felt this useful, this needed in a very long time." As dawn approaches, the storm finally begins to show signs of weakening. The men begin to stir, checking the weather, discussing their departure. Robert finds Sarah in the kitchen where she's preparing coffee and scrambled eggs. "We'll be leaving soon," he says. "Roads should be passable in a few hours." Sarah nods, surprised by how much their departure saddens her. "I'll pack some food for the road." "Sarah," Robert says, his voice serious. "What you did for us, for Carlos. We don't forget things like that. We take care of people who take care of us." She looks up from the eggs she's scrambling. "I didn't do anything special." Robert shakes his head slowly. "No, most people would have left us in that storm. Most people see us and cross to the other side of the street. But you opened your door. You fed us. You healed our friend. You treated us like family." You are family, Sarah says simply. At least you feel like family to me. When the time comes for them to leave, the goodbye is more emotional than anyone expected. Isaiah cries when Charlie has to leave, clinging to the older man's leather jacket with heartbreaking determination. I'll see you again, little man, Charlie promises, his own voice thick. That's a promise. Robert is the last to leave. He presses an envelope into Sarah's hands despite her protest. It's not charity, he says firmly. It's payment for services rendered. You're a healer. Healers deserve to be compensated. I can't take your money. You can and you will. We don't leave debts unpaid. His expression softens. Besides, that little restaurant of yours, don't give up on it. Good food and good hearts like yours will find their way to each other. Sarah stands in her doorway, holding Isaiah, watching 25 motorcycles disappear into the gray morning. The envelope in her pocket feels heavy with possibility. She opens it and gasps. More money than she made in 3 months at any of her previous jobs. Enough to pay rent, fix the heater, buy proper equipment. But more valuable than the money is the note written in Robert's careful handwriting. For Mama Sarah, who showed us what family really means. We won't forget. The brotherhood. For the first time in years, Sarah goes to bed believing that tomorrow might be better than today. 3 days later, Sarah's house feels like a tomb again. The silence presses against her ears with almost physical weight. She'd grown so accustomed to the sound of 25 voices that the emptiness now feels suffocating. She tried to restart her restaurant, using some of the money to buy fresh ingredients and make a new sign. But the cruel reality hasn't changed. In 3 days, exactly 0 customers have walked through her door. By the 4th day, Isaiah has developed a cold that makes him fussy and clingy. He won't eat, he's getting a fever. Sarah looks at the pile of money on the table and realizes she has a choice. Medicine and food for Isaiah, or rent money. There isn't enough for both. The decision is no decision at all. Her son comes first. Always. She bundles Isaiah in his warmest coat and walks to Mrs. Patterson's house. Despite their previous encounter, she's out of options. She climbs the front steps and knocks. Mrs. Patterson answers, her expression immediately souring. What do you want? Mrs. Patterson, I'm sorry to bother you, but my son is sick, and I was wondering if you might have some children's medicine I could borrow. Absolutely not. I told you before, I don't want anything to do with your kind of trouble. Please, Sarah says, hearing desperation creep into her voice. He's just a baby. He has a fever, and I need... That's not my problem. Get off my property before I call the police. Mrs. Patterson, please. The older woman shoves Sarah backward with surprising force. Already off balance from carrying Isaiah, Sarah stumbles down the steps and falls hard onto the frozen sidewalk. Isaiah screams. Sarah feels sharp pain shoot through her elbow. Stay away from decent people, Mrs. Patterson calls from her doorway. Take your child and your welfare problems somewhere else. This is a respectable neighborhood. The door slams shut. Sarah sits on the cold sidewalk, holding her crying son, feeling the sting of tears and the deeper sting of humiliation. Mama hurt, Isaiah sobs. I know, baby. Mama's hurt too. As she struggles to her feet, a voice calls out behind her. Honey, are you all right? Sarah turns to see an elderly black woman, standing in the doorway of a small house she'd never really noticed before. The woman looks to be in her 70s with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes filled with concern. I saw what happened over there, the woman says. That Patterson woman is nothing but meanness wrapped up in Sunday clothes. Come here, child. You both look like you need help. I don't want to be any trouble, Sarah says weakly. Trouble? The woman laughs warmly. Honey, helping folks in need isn't trouble. It's what we're supposed to do. I'm Grace, and you're coming inside right now. Grace's house is small but immaculately clean. filled with the smell of fresh bread and something else that reminds Sarah of her grandmother's kitchen. Love. Home. Grace examines Isaiah with gentle expertise. He's got a little cold, but nothing that won't clear up with rest and proper care. I've got children's medicine in the bathroom and fresh milk in the refrigerator. Sarah watches in amazement as Grace bustles around, preparing warm milk with honey, gathering medicine, wrapping up bread. "Why are you helping us?" Sarah asks quietly. Grace pauses, touching a silver necklace around her neck, an unusual piece with intricate engravings that catch the light. "Because I know what it's like to be alone and scared with a sick child," Grace says simply. "And because my mama always told me that kindness comes back to you when you need it most." She presses a small envelope into Sarah's hands along with groceries. "This should help with whatever bills are pressing on you. Don't you dare try to refuse it." Isaiah has already begun to perk up after the medicine. The sight of her son smiling makes Sarah's eyes fill with tears. "I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me, honey. You just take care of that beautiful baby and remember there are still good people in this world." As Sarah walks home with Isaiah in her arms and Grace's gifts in her hands, she feels something she hasn't experienced in months. Hope. Real, tangible hope. She doesn't know that 3 days later, her quiet street will be filled with the thunder of 1,500 motorcycles. She doesn't know that Grace's kindness is connected to the kindness she showed 25 strangers in a snowstorm. Sometimes the universe works in ways too perfect to be coincidence. And sometimes the smallest acts of compassion create ripples that travel farther than anyone could imagine. 3 days later, Sarah is in the kitchen preparing lunch when she feels it. A vibration so faint at first that she thinks it might be a truck passing by. But the trembling doesn't stop. Instead, it grows stronger, traveling up through the floorboards. Isaiah looks up from his toys. "Mama, what that?" The vibration intensifies until dishes in the cabinets begin to rattle. Sarah moves to the window and peers through the curtains. The street appears empty, yet the rumbling sound is growing louder, deeper, like distant thunder that refuses to move on. Then she sees them. They appear at the far end of Willow Creek Road, like a vision from another world. Motorcycles, dozens of them. No, not dozens. Hundreds. An endless line of chrome and steel that stretches back beyond what she can see, flowing toward her house like a mechanical river. "Oh my God," she whispers, her hand flying to her mouth. The lead motorcycles reach her house and begin to arrange themselves in precise formations. Behind them come more. And more. Until the quiet residential road looks like the staging area for the world's largest motorcycle rally. The thunderous rumble of 1,500 Harley-Davidson engines creates a sound unlike anything Sarah has ever experienced. A mechanical symphony that seems to shake the very air. "Big bikes, Mama!" Isaiah claps his hands with delight. "So many big bikes!" Sarah stands frozen in her doorway, trying to process what she's seeing. These aren't random bikers. This is organized. This is intentional. This is about her. Every house on Willow Creek Road opens as neighbors emerge to witness the unprecedented sight. Mrs. Patterson stands on her lawn, her face pale with shock and what looks like fear. At the head of the massive formation, Sarah recognizes a familiar figure. Robert sits on his bike. Beside him are Charlie, Luis, and all the others who spent that snowy night in her home. But behind them are hundreds more. Men and women wearing the same leather jackets, the same patches, the same expression of quiet determination. Robert dismounts and begins walking toward her house. As he moves, the 1,500 engines behind him fall silent in perfect unison. The sudden absence of sound is somehow more impressive than the thunder had been. "Sarah," Robert calls out, his voice carrying easily. "We need to talk." She steps onto her porch, Isaiah on her hip, feeling the eyes of 1,500 bikers and dozens of neighbors focused on her. Robert, what is this? Why are you all here? He stops at the bottom of her steps, his expression serious but not threatening. We told you we don't forget, he says simply, and we don't leave debts unpaid. A woman biker near the front steps forward, tall and confident with graying hair and kind eyes. I'm Maria from the Chicago chapter, she says. We heard about a woman who opened her door to 25 strangers in a blizzard. We heard about a mother who saved a young man's life with nothing but kindness. Word travels fast in our community, adds another writer from Milwaukee. Stories about real kindness spread like wildfire. Robert reaches into his jacket and pulls out a thick envelope. Sarah, this is from all of us. Every chapter contributed. It's enough to pay off every debt you have, fix up this house, and get your restaurant running properly. Sarah stares at the envelope, her mind struggling to process what's happening. I can't take this. It's too much. No, says Charlie firmly. You did what almost no one would do. That makes all the difference. News vans can be heard approaching in the distance. There's more, Robert continues. We've got contractors, electricians, plumbers, all riding with us. We're going to fix this house properly, make it into the kind of restaurant it deserves to be. Maria steps forward again. And we've got a marketing plan. Social media, word of mouth, food bloggers. By the time we're done, everyone in Cleveland is going to know about Mama Sarah's kitchen. Sarah feels tears streaming down her cheeks. Why? She whispers. Why would you do all this for me? Robert's expression softens. For a moment, she sees not the intimidating leader of a motorcycle club, but the grieving father who lost his daughter. Because you showed us what family really means, he says quietly. You showed us that kindness still exists in this world, and because sometimes when someone saves your life, you get the chance to save theirs right back. The crowd of neighbors has grown larger. Camera phones record everything. Mrs. Patterson stands at the edge of her lawn, her face a mask of confusion and what might be the beginning of shame. As if responding to an invisible signal, the 1,500 bikers begin to move. They don't mount their motorcycles, instead they begin walking toward Sarah's house, each one carrying something. Tools, building supplies, paint, lumber, kitchen equipment. Everything needed to transform her small home into a proper restaurant. We're going to get to work, Robert announces, and we're not leaving until Mama Sarah's kitchen is ready to serve the best soul food in Cleveland. Within an hour, Willow Creek Road has transformed into something resembling a festival. The 1,500 Hells Angels organize themselves with military precision, creating work crews that tackle different aspects of renovating Sarah's house. The neighbors gradually emerge from their houses to witness the spectacle. Word spreads quickly through the community. People from blocks away walk over to see what's happening. Local news vans arrive, capturing every moment as leather-clad bikers wield hammers and paintbrushes with surprising skill. Mrs. Patterson stands at the edge of her lawn, her expression cycling between confusion, fear, and what might be recognition that she badly misjudged everything. Grace appears at the edge of the crowd, drawn by the noise. The elderly woman stands at the back watching with curious eyes. This is incredible, Maria says, appearing beside Sarah with a clipboard. We've got the kitchen renovation mapped out, the dining room expansion planned. We'll have everything finished by tomorrow evening. Tomorrow? Sarah shakes her head in amazement. That's impossible. Maria laughs. Honey, you haven't seen what happens when 1,500 motivated bikers decide to get something done. Carlos emerges from the house looking healthy and happy. He's carrying a toolbox and has paint streaks on his clothes. The kitchen is going to be amazing, he tells Sarah enthusiastically. Professional-grade stove, expanded prep area, even a new freezer. You'll be able to handle 50 customers easy. Carlos, I still can't believe you all did this. Keisha, you saved my life. If you hadn't known how to break that fever. As he speaks, his hand moves to touch something at his throat. It's then that Sarah notices he's wearing a necklace she hadn't seen before. Silver, old-looking, with intricate engravings that catch the light. That's a beautiful necklace, she observes. Carlos's expression grows soft and sad. It belonged to my mother. I lost her when I was 7. Got separated from her during a fire at our apartment building. This necklace was the only thing I had left of her. The family that took me in let me keep it, but I never found her again. From somewhere behind them in the crowd, there's a sharp intake of breath. A gasp so sudden and loud that it cuts through the noise of construction and conversation. Carlos. The voice is trembling, uncertain, filled with 30 years of hope and heartbreak. Everyone in the immediate area turns toward the sound. There stands Grace, her face pale, her eyes fixed on the young man's necklace. Carlos, is that you? She whispers, her voice barely audible. Carlos freezes, his hand still touching the silver chain. I'm sorry. Do we know each other? Grace takes a shaky step forward, her eyes never leaving his face. You were 7 years old. There was a fire at the Riverside Apartments. You had a little birthmark shaped like a crescent moon just behind your left ear. Carlos's hand moves instinctively to touch the spot she mentioned, his eyes growing wide with disbelief. How do you know about that? He asks, his voice tight with emotion. Because I'm your mother, Grace says, tears streaming down her face. I'm your mother, and I've been looking for you for 30 years. The construction noise seems to fade as everyone falls silent. Carlos stares at the elderly woman, his face cycling through disbelief, hope, and recognition. The necklace, Grace continues, her voice growing stronger. I gave it to you for your 7th birthday. It belonged to my grandmother. There's an inscription on the back that says, Love never dies. With trembling fingers, Carlos turns the pendant over, revealing the exact words Grace just spoke. The silver is worn with age, but the engraving is still clearly visible. Mama! Carlos's voice breaks on the word. 30 years of separation collapse into a single moment of recognition. Oh, my baby, Grace sobs, rushing forward to embrace the son she lost so long ago. My beautiful baby boy. They collapse into each other's arms, both crying too hard to speak. Around them, the crowd of bikers and neighbors stands in stunned silence, witnessing a miracle no one could have predicted. Robert steps forward, his own eyes wet with tears. Grace, you're Carlos's mother. I am, Grace says, her arm still wrapped around her son. And you're the family that took care of him all these years. We're his brothers, Charlie says simply, and that makes you our mother too. The emotional weight of the moment ripples outward through the crowd. Hardened bikers wipe their eyes openly. Neighbors who never spoke to each other find themselves embracing. Even news crews stop filming to simply witness the power of a family reunited. I don't understand, Mrs. Patterson says, pushing through the crowd, her voice shaky. How is this possible? What are the odds? Sarah looks at the woman who shoved her down just days before, who called her child terrible names, who refused to help when help was desperately needed. The anger she expects to feel never comes. Instead, she feels something closer to pity. Sometimes kindness finds its way home, Sarah says quietly. Sometimes when you help someone, you're really helping yourself without knowing it. Grace looks up from her reunion with Carlos, her eyes finding Sarah's across the crowd. You, she says with sudden understanding. You're the woman who saved my son's life. You're the reason he survived that fever. And you're the woman who saved mine and Isaiah's life when we had nowhere else to turn, Sarah replies. I guess we've been taking care of each other's children without knowing it. The crowd erupts in cheers. the sound mixing with the revving of 1,500 motorcycles as the Hells Angels celebrate the impossible reunion they inadvertently caused. In the space of a single week, a blizzard, an act of kindness, and a community of unlikely angels have brought together a mother and son who have been searching for each other for 3 decades. Mrs. Patterson stands at the edge of the celebration, watching the joy unfold around her. And for the first time in years, she begins to understand what she's been missing by keeping her heart close to her neighbors. When the celebration energizes the entire street, what started as a construction project transforms into something resembling a neighborhood festival, with Hells Angels working alongside curious neighbors who gradually join in to help. The barriers that separated the community for so long crumble as quickly as the walls being knocked down in Sarah's house. By sunset, the transformation is nothing short of miraculous. The small house that once barely contained a kitchen table now boasts a proper restaurant space. The Hells Angels worked with the efficiency of a professional construction crew, expanding the dining area, installing commercial-grade kitchen equipment, even adding a cheerful sign above the door that reads, "Mama Sarah's Kitchen, where love is the secret ingredient." "I can't believe this is my house," Sarah says, standing in the doorway of what is now a proper restaurant kitchen. Professional stoves gleam under new lighting. Expanded counter space provides room for serious food preparation. A walk-in cooler hums quietly in the corner. "Believe it," says Maria with a satisfied smile. "And believe this too. We've already got your social media set up and your story spreading across the internet. You're going to have more customers than you know what to do with." Grace has hardly left Carlos's side since their reunion, but she approaches Sarah with tears still shining in her eyes. "Honey, I need you to know something," Grace says, taking Sarah's hands in hers. "When I helped you the other day, I thought I was just doing what any decent person would do. I had no idea I was helping the woman who had saved my son's life. And I had no idea the woman who saved me was Carlos's mother," Sarah replies. "It's like the universe was trying to tell us something." "It was telling us that we're family," Grace says firmly. "All of us. You, me, Isaiah, Carlos, and every one of these angels on motorcycles." Robert appears beside them, his leather jacket dusty with construction debris, but his face glowing with satisfaction. "Sarah, we need to settle some business," he says, pulling out another envelope. "This contains the deed to your house. It's paid off completely. No more rent, no more landlord. This place belongs to you and Isaiah now." Sarah stares at the legal documents in disbelief. "Robert, I can't accept this. You can and you will," he says with that same firm tone. "A restaurant needs stability. You can't build a business if you're worried about where you're going to live." Carlos steps forward, his arm around Grace's shoulders. "Besides, we're going to be regular customers, and Grace has already promised to help you perfect some of the old family recipes." As evening approaches, the neighbors who spent the day watching begin to approach more directly. Mrs. Johnson is the first to cross the street, carrying a covered dish. "I brought some cornbread," she says shyly. "I thought maybe we could all have dinner together. Try out the new restaurant." "That sounds wonderful," Sarah replies, accepting the dish with genuine warmth. Mr. Davis shuffles over with his wife, both looking slightly overwhelmed. "We wanted to apologize," Mrs. Davis says quietly. "We've lived next to you for 2 years and never once made an effort to get to know you. That was wrong of us." "We've all made mistakes," Sarah replies gently. "What matters is what we do going forward." But it's Mrs. Patterson's approach that surprises everyone most. The older woman walks slowly across the street, her face a mask of internal struggle. When she reaches the group gathered around Sarah's porch, she stops and takes a deep breath. "I owe you an apology," she says, her voice barely above a whisper. "A big one. What I did the other day, how I treated you and your son, it was inexcusable." The crowd falls silent. "I was wrong about you," Mrs. Patterson continues, her voice growing stronger. I was wrong about a lot of things. Watching what happened here today, seeing how these people treat you like family, understanding what kind of person you really are, I'm ashamed of myself." Sarah looks at the woman who shoved her down, who called her child terrible names, who refused the simplest request for help. But the anger never comes. Instead, she feels understanding. "We all have bad days, Mrs. Patterson," Sarah says quietly. "What matters is how we choose to move forward." "I'd like to be a better neighbor," Mrs. Patterson says, her voice thick with emotion. "If you'll let me." "Everyone's welcome at Mama Sarah's kitchen," Sarah replies with a genuine smile. "Everyone." As the sun sets over Willow Creek Road, an impromptu block party takes shape. Hell's Angels bring out grills and cook alongside neighbors who contribute dishes from their own kitchens. Children run between the motorcycles, their laughter mixing with the deeper voices of bikers who've appointed themselves honorary uncles and aunts. Isaiah has claimed his position as the unofficial mascot of the celebration, moving from person to person with the confidence of a child who's never known strangers, only friends he hasn't met yet. Charlie has fashioned him a miniature leather vest that reads "Little Angel" on the back. Isaiah wears it with enormous pride. "Look, Mama," Isaiah calls out, running to show off his vest. "I'm a big boy now." "You sure are, baby," Sarah replies, scooping him up for a hug. "You're the biggest, bravest boy I know." Grace takes charge of organizing the community dinner, moving through the crowd with the efficiency of someone who spent a lifetime bringing people together. "This is what a neighborhood is supposed to feel like," she tells Sarah as they watch the diverse group sharing food and stories. "This is what community really means." Robert finds Sarah as the evening winds down, most of the work crews having finished their tasks. "I have one more thing for you," he says, pulling out a small leather journal. "This contains contact information for every chapter that contributed today. If you ever need anything at all, you call us. You're part of the family now. Permanently." "Robert, I don't know how to thank you. Any of you." "You don't need to thank us," he replies. "You just need to keep being who you are. Keep opening your door to people who need help. Keep showing the world what real kindness looks like." As the Hells Angels begin to mount their motorcycles for the journey home, the neighbors who spent the day working alongside them gather to say goodbye. Handshakes turn into hugs. Email addresses are exchanged. Promises to stay in touch are made with genuine sincerity. "This isn't goodbye," Charlie tells Isaiah, lifting the little boy for one last hug. "Uncle Charlie is going to come visit all the time. And when you get big enough, maybe I'll teach you how to ride a motorcycle." "Really?" Isaiah's eyes light up. "Really?" "Really. But first, you have to help your mama make this the best restaurant in Cleveland." "I will! I promise!" The 1,500 motorcycles that filled Willow Creek Road begin to depart in small groups, their engines creating a symphony that carries with it the promise that this is not an ending, but a beginning. As the last bikes disappear into the night, the street falls quiet except for the sounds of neighbors cleaning up together and children's laughter echoing through the air. Sarah stands in the doorway of her transformed home, holding Isaiah on her hip, with Grace and Carlos beside her, and a street full of neighbors who are no longer strangers. The loneliness that pressed down on her for so long is gone, replaced by something she'd almost forgotten existed: a sense of belonging. "Mama," Isaiah says sleepily, his head resting on her shoulder. "Are we happy now?" Sarah looks around at the faces of her new family, at the restaurant that will let her build a future for her son, at the community that has embraced them both. "Yes, baby," she whispers, her voice full of wonder and gratitude. "We're happy now." 6 months later, the transformation of Willow Creek Road is complete in ways that go far beyond the physical renovation of Sarah's house. What was once a divided neighborhood where people barely acknowledged each other has become a genuine community where children play together and neighbors gather regularly for impromptu barbecues and block parties. Mama Sarah's kitchen has become more than just a restaurant. It's the beating heart of the neighborhood, a place where people from all walks of life come together over plates of perfectly seasoned fried chicken and sides that taste like childhood memories. The walls are covered with photographs from that miraculous day when 1,500 Hell's Angels descended on their quiet street, turning it into a construction site powered by love and loyalty. The success has exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. Food critics have written glowing reviews. A major Food Network approached Sarah about featuring the restaurant on a national show. Orders come in daily from people who heard the story and want to support the woman who opened her door to strangers in a storm. But for Sarah, the most meaningful measure of success isn't found in newspaper reviews or television coverage. It's found in moments like this morning, when she stands in her kitchen at 5 a.m., preparing for another busy day, and realizes that the crushing loneliness that defined her life for so long is just a memory. "Good morning, Mama Sarah," Carlos calls as he enters through the back door, carrying fresh supplies from the market. At 26, he's taken on the role of assistant manager, handling much of the business side while Sarah focuses on cooking. More importantly, he's become like a son to her, and she's become a second mother to him. "Morning, honey," she replies, accepting the kiss on the cheek he gives her every day. Grace is already here working on those new biscuit recipes. In the dining room, Grace is indeed experimenting with variations, trying to perfect a version that will complement Sarah's chicken. At 73, she's found a new purpose in life, splitting her time between helping at the restaurant and organizing community events that bring the neighborhood together. "Those smell incredible," Sarah says, sampling a warm biscuit. "I think we've got a winner." "Good, because we're going to need them for the lunch rush," Grace replies with satisfaction. Mrs. Patterson called yesterday to reserve a table for 12. She's bringing her church group. The change in Mrs. Ewell Patterson has been perhaps the most dramatic transformation of all. The woman who once shoved Sarah to the ground has become one of the restaurant's most loyal customers and biggest advocates. She's personally brought dozens of new customers, using her influence in the community to spread the word about the amazing food and the even more amazing story behind it. By noon, the restaurant is packed with its usual eclectic mix of customers. Hell's Angels sit at tables next to suburban families. Elderly church groups share space with young professionals. Children from the neighborhood treat the place like a second home. Isaiah, now 2.5, moves through the restaurant like a tiny host, charming customers with his bright smile and endless chatter. He's grown up surrounded by love from every direction. His mother, his grandmother Grace, his big brother Carlos, and the extended family of Hell's Angels who visit regularly. The shy, often sick little boy has blossomed into a confident, joyful child who believes the whole world is his family. "Uncle Robert!" Isaiah squeals when the familiar figure appears in the doorway. Robert has kept his promise to stay connected, visiting at least twice a month and bringing different members of his brotherhood each time. "There's my little man," Robert says, scooping Isaiah up for a hug. "Have you been helping your mama in the kitchen?" "I can crack eggs now," Isaiah announces proudly. "Mama says I'm a natural chef." "Just like his mama," Robert replies, catching Sarah's eye across the dining room and giving her the warm smile that's become as familiar as family. The afternoon brings a bus full of children from a local elementary school, part of a field trip that's become a monthly tradition. Sarah started offering free meals to underprivileged school groups, wanting to share not just food but the message that kindness and community can overcome any obstacle. "Miss Sarah," calls out one of the regular visitors, a 7-year-old named Isha. "Tell us again about the night when all the motorcycle angels came to help you." Sarah smiles as she settles into the routine that's become as much a part of the restaurant's appeal as the food itself. She tells the story of that snowy night, of 25 strangers who needed shelter, of the fever that nearly claimed Carlos's life, of the miraculous chain of events that brought a community together. The most important part, she always concludes, is that kindness is like a seed. You plant it by helping someone, and it grows into something bigger than you ever imagined. Those Hell's Angels planted seeds of kindness everywhere they went, and look what grew from it. As evening approaches and the restaurant begins to wind down, Sarah finds herself in her usual spot by the kitchen window, watching the street where her miracle began. The house that once stood isolated at the end of Willow Creek Road is now the center of a thriving community. Children play in yards where parents call greetings to each other. The division and suspicion that once characterized the neighborhood have been replaced by connection and mutual support. Grace joins her at the window, following her gaze. "You know what I think about sometimes?" Grace says quietly. "All the people who are out there right now feeling lost and alone like you were. Feeling scared and abandoned like Carlos was. Feeling angry and isolated like Mrs. Patterson was." "What about them?" Sarah asks. "I think about how all of them are just one act of kindness away from having their whole world change. One person willing to open their door, one stranger willing to help, one moment of choosing love over fear." Carlos appears beside them, having finished cleaning the kitchen. "The best part is that it doesn't have to be a big gesture," he adds. "It can be as simple as sharing a meal or offering medicine to a sick child or just treating someone like they matter." Sarah thinks about all the ripples that spread out from that one snowy night, the Hell's Angels who rediscovered the power of community service. The neighbors who learned to look beyond appearances and assumptions, the children who visit the restaurant and hear stories about kindness conquering fear, the countless people touched by the story through news coverage and social media, inspired to perform their own acts of compassion. Sometimes I wonder if this is what my grandmother meant when she used to say that helping others was really helping yourself, Sarah muses. "I thought I was just giving those men shelter from a storm, but they ended up sheltering me from a lifetime of loneliness." Robert, who lingered after the other customers left, overhears her words. "Your grandmother was right," he says simply. "But she was also wrong about one thing." "What's that?" Sarah asks. "You didn't just help yourself. You helped all of us remember who we wanted to be. Every person whose life you touched that night, every neighbor who learned to see past their prejudices, every child who comes here and learns that differences don't have to divide us. You helped all of them find their way to something better." As the last of the daylight fades, Sarah walks through the dining room one final time, straightening chairs and turning off lights. But her real purpose is simpler: to absorb the gratitude that fills every corner of the space she built through courage, kindness, and the support of an unlikely family. Isaiah has fallen asleep in one of the booths, exhausted by another day of playing host. Carlos gently lifts him and carries him toward the stairs that lead to their living quarters above the restaurant. "Sweet dreams, little angel," Carlos whispers, using the nickname that stuck since that first day. Before heading upstairs herself, Sarah steps outside onto the front porch where it all began. The street is quiet now, lit by warm light spilling from windows where families are settling in for the evening. In the distance, she hears the faint rumble of motorcycles, probably some of Robert's brotherhood heading home after their visit. She thinks about David, her ex-husband, who abandoned her and Isaiah when life got difficult. She wonders if he ever saw the news coverage or social media posts about Mama Sarah's kitchen. She hopes he did. Not out of spite, but because she wants him to see what's possible when people choose to stay and fight for each other instead of running away when things get hard. "Thank you," she whispers to the night air, addressing her words to her grandmother, to the universe. To the mysterious forces that brought 25 strangers to her door at exactly the moment when she needed them most. From somewhere in the darkness, the sound of motorcycles grows louder, then fades as they pass by on their way to whatever adventure awaits them next. But Sarah knows that wherever they go, they carry with them the same message that transformed Willow Creek Road. That kindness is never wasted. That community is stronger than isolation. And that sometimes the people who look most different from you are exactly the family you needed. She goes inside, locks the door, and climbs the stairs to the home where she and Isaiah live, surrounded by love, support, and the certainty that tomorrow will bring new opportunities to plant seeds of kindness in the world. In the end, that's the true legacy of Mama Sarah's kitchen. Not just the food or the success or even the miraculous reunion it facilitated, but the reminder it offers to everyone who enters that the smallest acts of compassion can ripple outward in ways that change everything. The story started with a woman alone in a storm, but it became something much larger, a testament to the truth that we are all connected, that kindness is always the right choice, and that when we open our hearts to strangers, we often discover that they were never strangers at all. They were just family we hadn't met yet. So here's what I want to leave you with tonight. Somewhere out there, right now, someone is sitting in their cold house counting their last few dollars, wondering how they're going to make it through tomorrow. Someone is standing outside in a storm, desperate for shelter, hoping against hope that someone will open their door. Someone is looking for family they lost 30 years ago, holding onto a piece of jewelry and a prayer that maybe somehow they'll find their way home. And here's the thing, you might be the person who changes everything for them. Not because you're rich or powerful or have all the answers, but simply because you're willing to open your door, to share your meal, to see past the leather jacket or the skin color or the circumstances, and recognize the human being standing in front of you. Sarah didn't know that opening her door that snowy Christmas night would lead to 1,500 angels descending on her street. She didn't know she was saving the son of the woman who would save her. She didn't know her kindness would ripple out across the country, inspiring thousands of people to perform their own acts of compassion. She just knew that there were people in trouble, and she had the power to help them. That's all any of us can do. Open the door, share the meal, choose love over fear, and trust that somewhere, somehow, the universe is keeping track. Because kindness always finds its way home. Always. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that reminds us all of the good that still exists in this world. Because we need these reminders now more than ever. Until tomorrow, stay kind, stay brave, and remember, you might be someone's angel today.